Alrighty, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to week 10 of the Fantasy Life. I'm the big AC, Andy Chevalier, and here, as always, the Portuguese Prince, the coach, Chris Dacosta. Coach, how are you doing this week? Tell me about your fantasy week 10.
Oh, it was fantastic. I went 2-1. One of my teams just blew up like 130 points, and I have a little side wager with the guy I played against. Whoever had the most wins by the end of the season, there'd be a difference of $20 per win. So I gained a win on him, and I'm playing two of the weaker teams in the league in this round. So like you said, if I have a little streak here, I could go 6-7 and make the playoffs. I'm only 2 games out with 4 games left. I got Bobby Rainey. I just traded for Julio Jones. I might have an opportunity. Mike Evans has been playing well. I have an opportunity here.
Never,
Yeah,
ever, ever give up. Like I said at the end of last show, Coach, you can never give up. 6 and
No.
7, you get in the playoffs, anything can happen. It was a pretty good week 9 for me. Lost in a couple of leagues that I probably should have won, and the must-win games, I won all of my must-win games. So I am plus 500 in all of my leagues except for one. So I am above 505 out of my 6 leagues, but I still got an outside shot in my other leagues. So anything could happen. Anything could happen at all. Let's talk about our hits and misses for last week, Coach. What do you think?
It was probably the best week I've ever had for hits. I mean, Jeremy Hill went 150 and 2 touchdowns, the top running back. Huge game in place of Gio. Ignore what happened last night. But Martavius Bryant, 2 touchdowns last week, too. Frank Gore, told you to sit him, had 49 yards from scrimmage. Told you to sit James Jones and Andre Holmes. They were non-existent as expected in Seattle. And one of my bold predictions hit, which was DeMarco Murray, rushed for less than 100 yards for the first time this season, even though there was some haters on Facebook. That's looking at you, Jody, saying that, that's not a bold prediction. I'm sorry. Breaking a guy's historic run is bold, regardless if it was the Arizona Cardinals. Yeah. I think it was still a bold prediction.
I like it. I like him, Coach. My hits, we told you to sit Romo. I mean, he didn't even play. Hopefully you didn't just plug him in and hope he played on Sunday. We told you to sit him. I mean, God, they look awful. Looks like he's going to play this week, though, so if you have Tony Romo, I think you can trot him out. You probably don't have a lot of options. And I was right about Alfred Morris. I mean, he had his best game of the season. I mean, a lot of people were just like, the Vikes are awful anyways. That's a good prediction to make. My biggest point was that not Alfred Morris was going to have a big game. He was going to have his best game. RG3 equals success for Alfred Morris, the butler. We've been telling you that all season long. What do you have? 92 yards, 2 touches. Even had 2 catches, which is bonus for you guys in the PPR leagues. So Alfred Morris, we were saying it 3 weeks ago. That was the time to get him. His stock couldn't have been lower, and he's only going to have great games from here on out. He's done bye this week, but I love him coming off the bye from here on forward. I was off on a couple of things, Coach. I was big on Andrew Hawkins, and he really let you down. He got hurt in the second half, but he really did not put up any numbers that we were hoping for. Taylor Gabriel was the guy that week. And also Russell Wilson. Gosh, I was really Russell Wilson. I looked like a genius starting Cam Newton over Russell Wilson, putting up 3 more fantasy points than Russell Wilson. But yeah, he put up an awful game against Oakland. 179 in the air, only 8 rushes for 39 yards. Not what you're expecting out of the Seahawks. For some reason, they struggled against Oakland, and that was a little surprising. How about some air balls for you, Coach?
Yeah, they almost lost that game too, which at home to Oakland would have been amazing. Even my misses were entirely off, I would have to say, and I will gladly admit when I'm wrong. For example, Ronnie Hillman, I've been wrong about that every week. But my misses were, I said Hoyer was going to have a huge game. He passed for 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, still had 2 picks. But you know what? If I had 16 points for my bye-week quarterback, I think I would take that any time. I said McCoy in my other bold prediction was going to score 2 touchdowns. He did not, but you know what? He rushed for 120, was still a top 15 running back. So I didn't really have any misses, but I'd say maybe some check swing singles on accident. So.
All right. Hey, Coach, you were dead on about Jeremy Hill and Martavius Bryant, so I think we'll just hang our hat on that. That was pretty awesome. Let's give some good advice this week. Start him, sit him. Let's go wide receiver. We both have a couple of guys who have let us down in the past. I'll let you start off, Coach. we've been dead on this guy all season long, but it looks like if there's a game for this guy to succeed, it's Vincent Jackson. I know you love him this week.
I do. And for my 4 guys that I'm going to pick this week, you might think the 2 I say are going to say sit, and the 2 of my sitters might be starts. But we'll go over them as we go. But Vincent Jackson, he's been boomer bust all season. If you take away some garbage time touchdowns from him, he's really not. You take away the name, he's not a quarterback, running wide receiver you want to have on your squad. But this week, who does he play? The lowly Atlanta Falcons defense. Allow a high 17 yards per reception in the league. Yes, Josh McCown's coming back. But you know what? McCown was looking his way. He had about 15 targets in one game, 13 in another with McCown before he got injured and then ultimately benched. But, it's a guy that's had 6 weeks off. I think Vincent Jackson's a guy you play with the matchup, especially if you have a space in your flex here. And, if I'm wrong, this is a guy you bench until you're absolutely, positively desperate. But I think one more start, I think this is the week where Vincent Jackson shows you that he's capable of rostering and playing. And obviously, if you have Mike Evans, roll with him too.
This is it, Coach. This is the last time I'm putting my faith in Vincent Jackson, okay? This is it. After this week, Coach, if he lets me down, bench time. If you can't do it against Atlanta, you can't do it against anyone. That's what it comes down to.
It's like doubling down when you have an 11. You expect a 10. If you don't get it, never again, right?
Never doing it again. Yeah, I'm never splitting aces again, Another receiver I like, and this guy hasn't been as much of a letdown. He just hasn't put up the ceiling we hoped he would. But he's been somewhat consistent. And we're talking James Jones against Denver this week. Denver is going to beat the Raiders maybe by 60 points. I think Peyton Manning just has got the red eye locked in. He's beat up after the Patriots, and he just really wants to just kill. It's like before your season starts, you want to play some crappy football team to boost up your confidence. Here come the Oakland Raiders. Time to do your playoff push, Denver. You're just going to beat down in Oakland, and I think Oakland's going to have to play from behind. I think Derek Carr is going to have like 50 to 60 pass attempts this game just because they have to even have a chance. James Jones is really going to do. Denver, if they can do anything, it's they can stop the run, not so much the pass. But a lot of times it doesn't even seem to matter because they just destroy teams anyways. I like James Jones. You're going to be desperate this week for bye-week fill-ins. I think James Jones can fill in with you nicely. I was actually trying to get him in a lot of leagues for garbage. I was hoping people would undervalue him. Not a lot of luck. I think people know to start James Jones this week. Andre Holmes, and he's been kind of hit or miss. I think James Jones is your much more solid guy. I think we're going to get maybe a multi-touchdown game out of James Jones this week. Let's talk a couple of quarterbacks. We're going to talk about a guy I know you're a big fan of. I'm going to talk about him first. Carson Palmer against the St. Louis Rams. Carson Palmer has had multiple touchdowns in every game since he's come back in Week 6. And usually this is a guy who's known to just throw a lot of interceptions. He hasn't had a multi-interception game all season in all of those games since Week 6. The team is just playing solid too, Coach. The Cardinals are playing like the best team in the NFC right now. This is a team who was projected to finish 3rd in their division. They're 1st in the NFL right now. And you know what? I think you're not going to be disappointed when you roll Carson Palmer out there. You're not going to see a 10-point, 12-point game. You're going to see a solid 16 to 20 or better out of this guy. And with these bye weeks, I don't think you could be disappointed with him at all. What do you think, Coach?
No, I think he's a guy that's your every week starter, especially for this week. Other than Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Big Ben against the Jets, which is going to be nice, and Drew Brees, I think Carson Palmer is your number 5 guy. And if you drafted guys like Stafford, Phillip Rivers, who's been a little weak lately, Flacco, if he's been your quarterback, or Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, Carson Palmer is the guy I'm starting every week. Every week. He's just been sensational since he's come back, and he loves to throw the ball. Andre Ellington, he's been a stud at running back for Arizona, but he catches the ball in the backfield, just as much as he runs it. He gets 6 to 8 catches a game. So Palmer's a guy you got to be starting, and I think this week's an excellent matchup for him as well against the Rams. Come on,
Coach. I thought last week we might have reached an all-time low with some of the names we were talking about, but we might just get a little lower right here. I'm looking at your notes right here, Coach. You're saying Mark Sanchez under the start column. Coach, it's got to be a misprint, right?
Call it what you want to call it, but watching Red Zone, they showed a lot of Philly after the Nick Foles injury, and whether it was adrenaline, whether it was lack of preparation from the opposing defense and the Texans for prepping for Mark Sanchez, but opportunity knocked for Markey, and he looked great last week. I mean, he threw for over 200 yards and a half, 2 touchdowns, and both of his picks went right off his receiver's hands. They just, those freak interceptions that the NFL jokes about changing how they call the stats. But the Sanchez, he played well. And I think in Chip Kelly's offense, he did nothing last week that would make me concerned. And if I had Nick Foles as my starting quarterback and some quarterbacks on bye, maybe Cam Newton was my backup or something, I don't know. I think you could do a lot worse than trying out Mark Sanchez out there. And with going against who they're playing this week is going to be something that I think is going to play well. And when else can you say the word butt fumble and not have a good laugh about it? So Mark Sanchez is the guy that I think will be good this week.
You know what? I'm going to sign off on this, Coach. I'm going to say they are facing Carolina, a weak defense. They're not what they used to be as far as defensively goes. And, yeah, this is a guy who has more interceptions than touchdowns in his career entering this game. But here's the thing that I think a lot of people aren't really focusing on. Mark Sanchez, first play of the game, what does Chip Kelly call? 50-yard bomb to Jeremy Maclin. Boom, touchdown. First NFL pass of the season, Mark Sanchez throws a touchdown. From there on out, you just saw the confidence level, and, of course, the confidence can't be higher once you throw a 50-yard touchdown.
And that is
so crucial for his success, Coach, I think. Having that confidence, being able to go in first play of the game, you just have that confidence going forward. I think that is beyond the stat column right there. To be able to just say, my first pass of the season, 50-yard touchdown, I'm the backup QB, have faith in me. And his teammates around him have gotta believe in him just a little bit more. That's got to be just a huge confidence booster.
And when he was in New York, it was a poisonous atmosphere, with the media, with the coaching staff. And he's going to be playing on Monday night. And if you're going to be starting your first game of the season, what better night than Monday night? And we always joke about, hey, can you imagine your league when you play a quarterback, Mark Sanchez, on a Monday night to win your fantasy week? That's going to be fantastic to brag about.
Never count out the Monday night mojo. It's just honestly how the NFL is sometimes. It's what would make the best story is what seems to happen more often than not. God, what would be great TV if Mark Sanchez came in and had a great game? That might happen, folks. And we're staying with these bye weeks. It might not be your worst option. Let's go from a quarterback who is anything but consistent in Mark Sanchez to someone who's been very consistent. We hate him this week, and you might have to roll him out there with injuries and bye weeks, and that's Ryan Tannehill. I am not big on Ryan Tannehill. Yes, he's been nothing but consistent. Yes, he just beat down the San Diego Chargers. But let's put it this way, folks. He beats teams he probably should be beating. His best games of the season were against San Diego, Green Bay, Chicago. But against solid defenses, New England, Buffalo, Kansas City, he does below average. He beats up the teams he should. He does below average against the teams that are decent pass defenses. And who are they facing this week? Oh, yeah, just the number one pass defense in the land off their bye week in Detroit. It's a trap game for Miami. I don't think Tannehill is going to do well. You probably don't have a lot of options as it is, being if you had an injury or a bye week. I'm just saying I would rather throw out Mark Sanchez this week, and there aren't going to be a lot of – I would rather throw out Carson Palmer this week. You probably don't have a lot of options, but I just don't think Ryan Tannehill is going to be one. I think he's going to be a bottom 10 starting quarterback this week. And I'm just saying, Coach, bye week, yeah, it looks bad, but you got to avoid Detroit. They look decent, very, very legit on the defense end.
And a guy I would roll out there, too, if you had to, would be Derek Carr. He's got to be on your waiver wire. And if you want to roll out Ryan Tannehill, Derek Carr's going to be throwing the ball 60 times against Denver. He's going to throw a couple picks, but, you could get you in the low 20s with the garbage time scores.
How about a couple of running backs, Coach? And I know with these bye weeks, running backs are scarce as it is, but now you throw in these bye weeks, East, you're going to be tough. We're going to talk about two guys who I think you really strongly should consider benching this week. I'll start it off, Coach, with Andre Williams out of New York. You're going to think I'm weird, crazy for mentioning this. He just had a good game last week. But let's be honest, okay? Let's break it down. He had 12 rushes, 22 yards on the ground, less than 2 yards per carry last week. This was his best game as a starter. He had a 1-yard goal line touchdown, and he caught a pass for 24 yards. The guy just didn't look good. He's facing Seattle, in Seattle. Their MO is stopping the run. I'm not feeling Andre Williams this week. I'm benching him for a lot this week. What do you think, Coach?
There's only one Giant that I would start moving forward, and that's Odell Beckham. Maybe Ruben Randall, but I do not believe in Andre Williams. I do not believe in Eli anymore. I don't believe in anyone on that team. Larry Donnell, unfortunately, I mean, tight ends are weak this year, but so he's an exception, I guess. And until Rashard Jennings comes back, I'm not touching a running back on the New York Giants.
I don't blame you, Coach. How about the other?
Also, the touchdown only or something like that. You know, I wouldn't. I'm not confident in Andre Williams at all.
How about the other New York team, Coach?
You know, after a hot start, this guy was a guy I like, and if you watch him play, he's got a great running style. But Chris Ivory, he's coming back to earth. He started off strong, and he had a great game against New England in here. But other than that game, 4 of his last 5 games, here's his rushing totals: 44 yards, 7 yards, 22 yards, and 43. That's 4 out of 5 games under 50 yards. And I don't know about you, but with Michael Vick back there, they're not really running the ball very much. They're throwing it more because they're losing more. They're not in games at all. This team just, it's one of those teams that just doesn't have an identity. And when you don't have an identity, you tend not to run the ball because you're behind and you're turning it over. So it's not about Chris Ivory. It's about where he's at. And guess who they're playing? The scorching hot Pittsburgh Steelers, who are throwing the ball better than anyone else in the NFL against the worst pass defense in the NFL. And their defense feeds off their offense. James Harrison looks like he's 30 years old again. Their secondary is much better. They've looked great for the last 3 weeks now. Crushed Baltimore. All the math adds up to benching Chris Ivory. Don't play the name. Play the situation. I
agree with you, Coach. The Steelers are playing like one of the best teams in football right now. It's unbelievable. Both seasons, both this season, last season, they started off really slow, and then they just something clicks. I think it was Martavius Bryant. I don't know what it is, but they're doing great. Ben Roethlisberger, I'll talk about this in a little bit. He's going to be the first quarterback in history to have 6 touchdown passes in 3 straight games. I really think that this week they're just playing great football, and because of that, Ivory just is not going to be a factor in this game. Like you said, Harrison playing like a man possessed. It's unbelievable. Troy Polamalu will be out of this game. He's inactive, but I still think the defense is going to be very solid. Ivory's got to be a bench. How about a wide receiver, Coach? And this is the guy made a lot of appearances early on this season, Coach. I'll let you segue into this. Who is your receiver to bench this week that no one else will?
Well, hate to say I told you so. I was wrong for the beginning of the season. But I told you so. Michael Floyd, where art thou? Where have you been? This guy hasn't amassed 50 yards in a game. And how much have we been talking about Carson Palmer? Must start. Top 5, 6, 7 quarterback. Michael Floyd should be sat. Let me tell you why. He hasn't amassed 50 yards in a game since week 3. And without the touchdowns against the Redskins and the Raiders, which, don't get me wrong, are terrible. I don't think anybody disagrees with me. I mean, no one believes in those defenses. Bottom 5 in whichever category you want. He scored against those 2, but he had 40 yards in those games and just a couple catches too. Take away those touchdowns, and he is way outside your top 60 at his own position. He's touchdown or bust at this point. He's got the talent, but honestly, you bench Michael Floyd not just this week, but I think moving forward, he maybe has one good game in him rest of the season. Unless something clicks, John Brown is the guy that's taking touches from it. Andre Ellington out of the backfield. Even John Carlson in the red zone, which is what people thought he was going to be used for. I know he catches a lot of deep balls, yes. He's also a big dude. And just like Vincent Jackson, except Vincent Jackson's got an amazing matchup. It's a guy I just don't have faith in. And you plug him in, you're just like, well, I hope he gets 40 yards. That would be nice. That's never.
Let's just be honest. Who's the guy you want to throw out every week? It's probably not Michael Floyd, unfortunately. It's this guy, Larry Fitzgerald. He's the man. You got to throw him out every week there. He couldn't have started slower, and he couldn't have ended any hotter. Coach, rattle off the stats on our Fitzgerald versus Michael Floyd stats.
So revisiting our little conversation from since week 1, Larry Fitzgerald, 35 catches for 514 and 2 touchdowns. Michael Floyd, 23 catches for 389 and 2 touchdowns. Fitz is the obvious winner here with almost 200 yards more. And those numbers aren't crazy, but halfway through a season, not great for catches, but for yardage, great for Larry. That catch show, I think, was about to go up with Carson Palmer back. They have chemistry. They just do.
Really quickly, Coach, what do you think of Michael Floyd going forward? Is this a guy you would maybe want to target from here on out, or have we seen what Michael Floyd's going to do? Is he going to be Is he just going to be a headache all season long? Do you like him going forward?
No, I'll be honest with you, I don't. He's got the Seattle D a couple times, the Niners D coming up again. It's not unless you have some quality receivers. I think you can. Unless you have no receivers, I think you've been comfortable benching this guy. There's a lot of receivers out there, and there's got to be a couple believers still in your league. Maybe a Notre Dame fan from years past, who knows? But a Rudy fan, I don't know. But I think there's somebody in your league that believes in Michael Floyd. I just hope it's not you. Maybe you can trade him for some value, or I just don't think you can trot him out there anymore.
With the trade deadline coming up, Coach, you got to make these decisions sooner rather than later. Let's talk about some buy low, sell high. I'm going to start off with some buy low guys. I'm going to start off with the running back position, a guy who I really think you should buy low on. He started off okay. Last season, he was fantastic, and he's just coming off an injury right now, and I think now's a great time to get him, especially during his bye week, and I'm talking Ryan Matthews. Look, Coach, people forget that he was the bell cow last year. He was very, very, very consistent. He showed people what Ryan Matthews can do when he's healthy for an entire season. Because prior to last season, he just wasn't healthy all season. He was on a lot of championship teams as your running back too last season. People are bringing up the name Brandon Oliver. It's Brandon Oliver. Look, Brandon Oliver's falling back to earth. Like, he isn't going to be that guy every week who's just going to put up 20 plus. And he's really just been humbled. Like, he hasn't been really much a factor. Miami shut him down last week, and you know what? I think he's going to fall into that Danny Woodhead role more than anything. Ryan Matthews gets back. They probably could have started Ryan Matthews against Miami. I think San Diego's playing it smart. They're playing great football. They probably know they got a wild card spot locked up. And they're going to want him from week 11 on. They got a bye week this week. They want Ryan Matthews 100%. And I think this is a guy you want to buy low. I think his stock really couldn't be lower right now. I think now is the time to get him with those trade deadlines coming up. What do you think?
No, I love Ryan Matthews. Obviously this guy's a talented player. What's the one thing that has plagued him his entire career? It's his injuries. It's the first thing we're talking about. He's missed about half of his career with collarbone, knee, shoulder, you name it. But what do you want Ryan Matthews for? End of the season push, maybe a playoff run, a couple games, and if he's a guy that's healthy, which, like you alluded to, the Chargers have been benching him intentionally. He could have played, but why risk it? They want him to be healthy, ready to go for the late season push, so your fantasy season push too. Absolutely a guy I would target, maybe even trade for. But whoever's got him is probably not likely to trade him if they still have him or picked him up recently. But you could always try. I like him a lot, though, moving forward.
What I would do, Coach, is I would target if you have depth on your team, you think you can trade some of this depth that's playing this week. Target a guy who's on bye, who has the bye week blues and needs that starter. I'd target Ryan Matthews. I'd go after that guy who has Ryan Matthews, who needs a starter this week. Next week, his price is going to get higher, and it's only going to get higher after that. So now's the time to get him. How about another guy who couldn't have started the season hotter, and he's just been really big disappointment based on what you were hoping for based on the start of the season? That's Orange Julius Thomas out of Denver. This guy is a clear-cut top 3 tight end, and he just hasn't been putting up those numbers recently. If you can find that guy who is just looking at the numbers, who's been disappointed, and he just, and he isn't going to sell him for a top 3 tight end value, you go after Julius Thomas because he's going to have a monster season. I love him this week. His value is a lot lower than it really should be. He's on the best offense in football, folks. You want this guy. If you're getting someone that isn't going to sell him for the price that Jimmy Graham is going for right now, I'd say go after Julius Thomas.
I'd agree. I don't know too many people that would be selling. So this is one I mildly disagree with you on. I agree that you should be trying to get him, but I don't know too many owners that would sell low. But if you can get him at that point, by all means, absolutely stud player, regardless of position.
What I'm saying is, Coach, I think his value couldn't be lower than what it should. So, yeah,
Gotcha.
they aren't going to sell him low. They're going to sell him lower than what it should be. So if you can trade a high-end wide receiver to get this guy, say if you have really tremendous wide receiver depth, maybe package like a Julian Edelman and Greg Olsen and get a Julius Thomas, I would do that in a heartbeat. I'd do that in a heartbeat. Julius Thomas is a guy that can put up 20 points a week. This is a trade you couldn't pull off 4 or 5 weeks ago. I think now's the time you can pull off a 2-for-1 and get a Julius Thomas for your playoff run. And he's had his bye week. You don't have to worry about the bye week here on forward. How about some sell high guys who you think have peaked out?
So one guy might surprise you, one might not. But my first guy is Terrence West.
He had a big game last night, Coach.
He had a huge game last night, but that's why if you watch that game, who didn't for Cleveland, right? 3 letters, RBC, running back by committee. I don't know about you, but I feel like every week it's either Ben Tate or Terrence West or Isaiah Crowell. Crowell's been probably the only guy that's been consistent for the season. Scored early, scored lately, scored in the middle. Ben Tate, the last few weeks has been a little slow. And Cleveland came out and said, we're going to give Terrence West the ball. He's going to be the guy getting more touches moving forward. But what does moving forward mean? I think it's just another week or two. Yeah, he had 26 carries last night. But Crowell had 10. Tate had 10. All 3 scored. The Browns are the team that run the ball the most in the NFL, so you can do much worse here. But, again, I think you can sell this guy right now for a higher value than he's actually going to be worth moving on. He's a guy that's been plagued by injuries in his career. That's why he hasn't seen the field. Last year was playing behind Willis McGahee. I just, don't get me wrong. Last year is a thing of the past, but I just don't see any piece of that pie being appetizing enough in Cleveland between Crowell, Tate, and West. If this is a flex guy and you got some, pretty good running backs and you need a receiver, sell high right now.
I agree, Coach. I agree. I mean, I'd rather him be someone else's headache. If now's a great time. I mean, he just had a fantastic game last night, and I think now's the time to package him and maybe a high-end receiver and get that wide receiver 1, get that running back 1. And be like, maybe you can package T.Y. Hilton and Terrence West and go at Antonio Brown next week and be like, look, Antonio Brown's got to bye. Now's the time. I'm going to give you a high-end wide receiver and a running back and get that elite wide receiver you need to make that playoff run. So, yeah, Terrence West is going to be in a lot of any league I have him. I'm going to package him and try to get that guy because you don't want that headache that is the Cleveland backfield. Ben Tate, Isaiah Crowell. You don't know what's going to happen. So, yeah, I completely can sign off on that, Coach. Who else do you think we should sell high?
I got a workhorse here that I would sell, and that's Reggie Wayne. Let me tell you why. Someone in your league needs a wide receiver. Someone's been frustrated with Vincent Jackson, Calvin Johnson's injuries, Julio Jones not performing that well lately. And those are top-tier guys, but somebody just they might feel is consistent. Reggie Wayne's coming off his second-best game of the season, and he's got what I call the Hard Knocks effect. On Sunday night and Monday Night Football, everyone watches, just like everyone watches Hard Knocks. So they have this amplified perspective on the player and who they are. For example, Devonta Freeman, after Hard Knocks, everyone was drafting him high. I don't know about you, but people were drafting him around 6, 7, 8. In one of my main leagues, he actually went in front of Steven Jackson. And I am convinced, don't get me wrong, great player in college, but I'm convinced it's because of Hard Knocks. So everyone watched Monday Night Football. Watch that long touchdown. No Reggie Wayne, Hall of Fame name. There's a lot of balls to go around in Indy. Reggie Wayne's a solid player, but I think you can sell him as all-time high right now, which is reliable, hoping for 80 yards and a touchdown a game. Somebody wants that consistency, and with a bye week upcoming, I think coming up this Sunday, I think now you have 2 weeks to kind of work on your Reggie Wayne package or trade before your trade deadline comes up. I couldn't agree with you more, Coach. I couldn't agree with you more. Andrew Luck is the most generous quarterback in the NFL. He spreads the ball around.
if there is a reliable guy, I'd say it's T.Y. Hill, and he's going to be the number one. But honestly, I think guys like Dwayne Allen and maybe even Kobe Fleener are getting the second or third nod before Reggie Wayne.
Yeah.
Yeah, his game could have been better. I'd package him totally. I have actually successfully done that this week and traded Reggie Wayne to people who think, who believe that he's going to be great going forward. I think he's going to be okay, but not what he showed up on Monday night. And that's frankly what it comes down to. Absolutely would I sell Reggie Wayne. All right, we got a lot of fan questions in. In fact, we got one while we're doing the show. Ken Baum, we already talked about Mark Sanchez. Is Mark Sanchez a reliable QB since the Eagle offense is so high-powered regardless? Would you sign off on Mark Sanchez going forward, Coach?
Absolutely. Nick Foles is going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. He looked great last week. He's got a weak Carolina defense coming up again on Monday Night Football where those stories just kind of line up sometimes. Going against the NFC East opponents, the Giants secondary, does that scare you? The Redskins secondary, does that scare you? The Dallas secondary, okay, maybe a little bit. But with their running game, I think Mark Sanchez is protected. He's got a lot of weapons, and he's got, well, you mentioned before, AC, confidence. And a quarterback with confidence, a guy that's been there before, a guy that took some terrible Jet teams, granted with great defenses, deep into a playoff run, he's been there, done that. I don't think he's going to play scared as it showed him last Sunday. So, yeah, absolutely I think Sanchez is worth the money, worth the waiver wire pickup if you need a QB.
I'm not a big Mark Sanchez guy, but I will say this. He's 6 years older than he was when he started in the NFL. He started in the NFL when he was 22 years old. He's 28 now. I think he's a lot different quarterback than he is. And going into camp, I mean, I'm big on preseason camp to see what people say. Nick Foles had that job locked up and everything, but a lot of people said if this was a committee, going into this season, if they had to compete for their jobs, a lot of people thought, Mark Sanchez had a decent opportunity to win that job. I mean, everyone would have hung Chip Kelly if Nick Foles didn't start. But hey, here he comes, Mark Sanchez. He gets his opportunity, and he does great on a big stage, on a very big game for Philly. I'm going to say this: if you're going to be starting Mark Sanchez, you probably don't have a lot of options as it is. You could be a lot worse in your situations. I like him a decent amount compared to what your other options are going to be. So yeah, Mark Sanchez going forward could be a lot worse.
His next 3 games: Carolina, Green Bay, and Tennessee.
Good games. Good game. Yeah. Good games. We got another question, Coach. Scott Fortune said, "Who is a better value going forward, Terrence West or Ben Tate?"
That's a great question. That's a great question.
Let me start off, Coach. I'm going to say this. I'm not feeling both, but if I got to roll out one, I'm going to roll out Terrence West. He's not going to get a lot of catches. That's more Ben Tate's role. But I think Terrence West, for what his value is going forward, I think you can kind of give him the ball. Ben Tate is just, for some reason, they just don't give him the rock. If he gets a touchdown, he just doesn't get the rock ran out. Ben Tate's very touchdown reliant, where Terrence West, I think, just kind of looks better. If you watched that game last night, he was kind of getting the second, third effort yards, but much more than Crowell and Tate. So I would go West.
I would agree with you. And the other thing, too, like we talked about in the last segment, if you can trade him, he's the guy that has got more trade appeal as well. So if I had to pick one to kind of run with the rest of the season, it'd be West, and kind of hear what my options are over the next 10, 11 days for your trade deadline. So absolutely West.
Good point, Coach. If you were to make a trade right now, who's more appealing to you, Terrence West or Ben Tate? It's going to be Terrence West. Thus, Terrence West has more value. Alex Hardesty writes, Mark Ingram versus San Fran or Eddie Lacy versus Chicago?
As a San Fran fan, Mark Ingram's having one of those seasons when he's healthy right now where it doesn't matter where he plays, who he plays against. Because if you got a great run defense, you got to give some attention to who? Drew Brees. So even if you got a good run defense, your linebackers are being very aware of when to drop back, and you got different schemes. And before you know it, Mark Ingram's tearing it up right down the middle. He's been running outside. He looks leaner. He looks faster. I just don't know how you can bench Mark Ingram. I know Lacey's got a very enticing matchup against the Bears on Sunday night, but if I had to roll with one, I would 100% pick Mark Ingram and bench Lacey, and then on Monday morning look like a smart guy.
gun to the head coach. I got to go with the guy who just has done it more, and that's Eddie Lacy. I think Packers are going to destroy Chicago this game. I'm a believer in the San Fran rush D, and I think Ingram. I think it's going to be more of an air attack against San Fran. I
And
think I think Packers are going to be able to do whatever they want against Chicago. So I'm going to split the vote with you on this one.
I want to throw one other thing that just came out a couple hours ago is Patrick Willis is going to be out for the game. So you don't have your field general in San Francisco on the defensive end. However, his sub last week, the rookie, Suka, had 19 tackles. So, I mean, pick a linebacker. San Fran's got 8 or 9 startable ones.
Yeah. So I'm splitting the vote on this one. I go Lacey, you go Ingram. Jeff Maynard writes Cam Newton against a leaky secondary in Philadelphia or Matty Ice, Matt Ryan versus Tampa. To me, this is a no-brainer, Coach. What do you think?
See, this is one of those. Now, my mind says Matt Ryan because that matchup is just amazing with Tampa Bay. But my heart, my gut, for some reason, wants to go with Killer Cam against an awful Philly defense. I think, like you said, gun to my head, I'd be more mad if Cam went off and I benched him than I would be if I played Cam and Matt Ryan went off. So I think I would personally go Cam Newton by a hair, and I know you're going to go the opposite way.
Of course I'm going the opposite way. Matty Ice had his either first, I don't have the stats right here, either his best or his second best game against Tampa. Tampa is awful. Awful. Cam Newton just for some reason either has those killer games or those nothing games. I'm going Matty Ice here 100%. He is just going to destroy Tampa because that's what Tampa does. Is they let up a ton of points. I got Matty Ice and Julio Jones combining for a lot of points this year. I'm actually rolling that out as my combo in my daily fantasy leagues. Matty Ice, Julio Jones, Matty Ice all day long. Mark Pearl, we're splitting the vote on a lot of these, Coach. Mark Pearl has a really good question.
You can't go wrong with Matt Ryan, obviously, here, and my bold prediction will allude to that later. Yeah. But I just have this feeling, I'm going with my gut. There's no analysis here that Cam Newton's going to have a day on Monday night.
All right, just the gut feeling. Okay, Coach, we're going to roll with the gut feeling in a second. That's what we do now. All right, Mark Pearl has a great question. He needs some solid waiver picks for this week for the brutal bye week. This is probably the worst bye week of the season, probably since week 4. I'm going to roll out a couple of QBs, receivers, running backs, and tight ends this week, Coach. Let's rattle them off. I'm going to go with the 2 we talked about. Mark Sanchez and Carson Palmer, I think those are both decent quarterbacks. How about you, Coach?
For me, I like Kyle Orton a lot. Believe it or not, this guy, since he's been a starter 4 weeks ago, he's had at least 17 fantasy points between that and 24 each start. Doesn't turn it over much. Sammy Watkins is a stud. And the running game, has been a little lackluster with the injuries lately. But if Fred Jackson comes back, or if he doesn't, he's been holding his own because that Buffalo defense is putting them in successful positions to succeed. I like Kyle Orton. Tannehill's another guy we've talked about, and Derek Carr this week. But for me, I think I'd go with Sanchez or Kyle Orton this week. Palmer to me is an automatic start. But
yeah, I go Palmer 1, and then I guess Mark Sanchez 2, Kyle Orton 3, but it's close for me. Mm-hmm. How about wide receivers, Coach? I'm going to go with a guy who I think should already be picked up, but if he's not, Martavius Bryant. I mean, come on, that's a no-brainer. They're facing the Jets. He has an opportunity to get another 2 touchdowns, and he's just been really that wide receiver 2 they're looking for. If we go a little deeper, though, I'm going to go Kenny Britt against a favorable Arizona matchup. If the Rams have any solid consistency in their offense, it's actually their air attack. I think their run game has been really inconsistent. They have no idea even who the running back's going to be. I hate all Rams running backs this week, by the way. I'm hating all of them against Arizona, the number 1 rush D. But Arizona lets it up in the air, and I'm liking Kenny Britt as a deep play this week. How about you, Coach? Any receivers?
I like a Kenny as well, but I'm going with Kenny Stills. If he's a guy in a deeper league, you're looking for a flex play or even a low-end receiver too if you're really desperate. Kenny Stills, he'll catch a 40-yard touchdown for you, every 3 weeks. The weeks that he doesn't, he's getting you 40, 50 yards, and that's not what you want to start. But if you're looking at a waiver wire pickup this week, I would say Kenny Stills or another boomer bust touchdown guy, Stevie Johnson. Quiet last week, but 2 touchdowns in his last 4 games. You could, he's a guy that's on the field. If you're looking at this deep in wide receivers in your league, he's on the field. So yeah, I'd go Martavis Bryant. Absolutely one. You know I love that guy. But those would be the other two guys I'd consider.
Kenny Stills is definitely the home run guy. I agree with you on that. Tight end. I'm going to go with Michael Riviera out of Oakland. Oakland, like I said, is going to need the air ball a lot, and he's been pretty hot these past few games. So maybe Derek Carr will go with the guy he's comfortable with. And again, when in doubt, go to whoever's facing the Jets. Heath Miller at the tight end spot. I'm feeling Heath Miller this week if you're in emergency tight end mode.
Yeah, for me, this guy maybe isn't a free agent in your league, but it's one of those. He might be is Kobe Fleener, but he's on bye this week. But if you need a tight end for a bye week later on, he's a guy you can have. But if you're looking for a player for this week and this week only, maybe looking at Scott Chandler. He's been a little reliable for Kyle Orton, or even Jason Morrow, which I know is not a name no one wants to hear. No one wants any Jets, but he's had some catches. Last week he didn't have a great game at all, no catches at all. But tight end is a very weak position. A lot of guys on bye. And after Riviera, who's been a decent target for Derek Carr and against Denver should get a lot of touches, I'd go with those two guys.
I'll sign off on the Scott Chandler. Not going to sign off on the Chase Samaro, Coach. That's a little bad. I can't do the Chase Samaro. I'm sorry, Coach.
It's okay.
All right. Running backs. This is going to be. I doubt these two guys are going to be available, but I'd go Bobby Rainey and Denard Robinson. I think those guys are. You got to throw those in at the running back. I'd be shocked if they're available, Coach. Any running backs, deeper running backs that maybe you throw in there, emergency bye week?
Yeah, I'm with you. If those guys are available in your league, you better be in the top three. Because come on, Denard Robinson's been a number 2 running back. But if you're looking deeper down the line, the Cardinals like Marion Grice. We got a goal line touchdown against Dallas in a game that was a 2-score game. So that's a kind of an important possession. So he's on the field, and again, it could be a touchdown and boom guy. But when you're looking at running back at this point in the season on the waiver wire, I think you're happy with that. And an interesting name too that I think is not available in a ton of leagues, but in about half is James Starks. The Bears, they could get blown out by Green Bay on Sunday night. And they're having games where Starks kind of takes some touches away from Lacy. So I don't think you can do a lot worse than James Starks on Sunday night against the lowly Chicago Bears.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for Week 10 of the Fantasy Life. Good luck this week. If you have any questions between now and kickoff on Sunday, write them in the comments below. We'll gladly answer them. We're also going to post our bold predictions. I almost forgot, Coach. We've got to do our bold predictions.
Yeah,
what are your bold predictions?
My bold prediction, the 2, is going to be Lamar Miller will not rush for more than 60 yards against the Lions, and Julio Jones and Roddy White will combine for just under 300 yards. Let's say 275 and 3 touchdowns against Tampa Bay. But play Cam Newton over Matt Ryan.
No. I'm feeling the Julio Jones bold prediction. I'm going to go with Big Ben will make history. He's going to throw 6 touchdowns against the Jets, first quarterback in history to do that. And I think McCoy will have his first multi-touchdown game of the season. I think Sanchez is going to have to rely on him a little bit more. And I think McCoy is going to get his touches, and he's finally going to have that multi-touchdown game of the season. Sure hope not, because I'm facing him in a couple of leagues, but that's my bold prediction. That's going to wrap it up here for Week 10 of the Fantasy Life. If you have any questions, like I said, leave them in the comments. We're going to post our bold predictions on Sunday, and that's going to wrap it up here. Until then, I'm the Big AC, Andy Chevalier. This good-looking guy drinking some agua is the Polish Prince, the Coach Chris Dacosta. Coach, good luck in Week 10 for Fantasy.
You too. Go Niners. Let's get those Saints.
All right, folks. Good luck, Big Ben, and try to make history that week. Until then, have a good one, folks. See you on the Fantasy Gridiron.